Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another update. So the big idea right now, what's happening is that President Joe Biden has officially decided that he's going to be sitting down and having a meeting, and more meetings coming up very soon, where he's going to pretty much be sitting down and trying to talk with a lot of the big major corporate CEOs to try to propose his plan to preach for his brand new version of the Build Back Better plan that he's looking to now currently price at around $1 trillion. So the big idea is, and in today's video is I really want to talk half of this video really talking about what's happening there, because within this Build Back Better program there are obviously a lot of other stimulus programs such as child tax credit and things that are hopefully relevant to many of us. But I do maybe also want to talk about a lot of the other stimulus programs that are going on that might be relevant to a lot of other people. For example, one city did recently just approve a $500 stimulus check, so that is really great news. And then there's also a lot of just other kinds of stimulus programs that, simply put, is hopefully going to be able to provide some relief and help, especially a time of need, for anyone that maybe is still going through something in particular. I genuinely think it's going to be useful. Of course, you guys can probably decide at the very end of this video, and we're going to talk all about that. So we're going to get right to it, but as always, real fast, before we begin, consider smashing the like button because we are at least talking about things that are going forward right now. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell if you guys are interested in similar videos, although you guys can decide at the end. Huge thanks if you guys are currently here, and as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts about honestly just anything. So that being said, let's get this video started. So the story to what's going on right now in the world of just stimulus packages is that President Biden, as just mentioned, is planning and is already, so he already just had a meeting, but he's planning several more upcoming meetings where he's going to be trying to get a lot of people that maybe were not initially involved in a lot of the negotiations to now get involved in a lot of these negotiations. So for example, one group happens to be a lot of the major corporate CEOs that are out there. Now, the significance of why this is particularly important is because many of these people, first off, is that they run very massive companies. These companies hire and employ thousands and thousands of people, so this potentially impacts the job market. But they're also people that have a lot of power and a lot of influence over a lot of people. And this includes being connected with a lot of the actual politicians in Congress that actually do have a lot of power when it comes to the voting system and everything related to just getting bills approved. So what's going on is that he wants to try to preach his ideas to a lot of the big CEOs to see what they have to say, and if maybe they can potentially influence the actual politicians that do have a lot of power, but specifically the actual voting power to get the bills approved to try to get through. And then of course the other groups of people that he's trying to really get involved now are, interestingly, the Republicans, because for the last couple of months they were trying to get the Democrats on board, and they did get most of them, but of course after the Joe Manchin and the Kristen Sinema situation, and now what they're hoping to do is try to gather Republicans and really just try to reach out to people to really gain the support that they hopefully can finally need in order to get their packages to go through. And that's really the big idea of what's happening there. Now, when it comes to just the world of just stimulus checks and programs outside of that in general, so maybe to start is that maybe one really great news is that there is now officially one city that has actually recently just approved a brand new $500 stimulus check, and that city happens to be Atlantic City within New Jersey. So just huge congrats if you happen to be there. If you're in the Northeast, then most of you guys know, I don't know what most people outside of the Northeast knows, but I know that if you happen to be someone who's in the Northeast like me in New York, Atlantic City, it's pretty much one of the biggest cities that people go to during the summer times, especially to basically enjoy their casinos. And because obviously the casino industry was one of the industries that was the most impacted by the pandemic. So the big idea is that because this was recently just approved there, we don't have a lot of details, but the bright news is that a lot of residents there are hopefully now finally able to at least get some money coming in, and that's the really big news. I do know is that California is now working on another potential stimulus check. So as in, like, you might have heard about the fourth Golden State stimulus check, the fifth stimulus check. They're now working on a potential sixth stimulus check. But this is still kind of in the plans, so we don't know as much about that. But the idea is, as mentioned, is that at least we are making progress. Now, to maybe talk a little bit now about just other kinds of stimulus programs as a big picture, to really be as inclusive to as many people as possible, because again, I'm in New York, so I'm also not in Atlantic City, I'm not in California. I do know a lot of people in California, but I'm not specifically in California. But one thing that maybe is relatively hopeful is that one of the goals that they're currently trying to do right now inside of Congress is to really try to approve, and this applies on the federal level. So that is the really great news, is that everything for the rest of this video that we're going to be talking about is going to be something that applies to all 50 states. What they're really hoping to do is to now try to create stimulus programs to really provide relief in a lot of other ways. So in examples of this could be things such as like pandemic EBT, rental and housing assistance. Maybe I know very, very recently, interestingly, was also about trying to provide assistance for things like heating and electric bills. So the idea is, what's going on is that they want to really try to create new programs right now to really target very, very specific, not even just groups of people, but just specific ways to actually help people give relief. So maybe it won't necessarily come in like a very, very direct stimulus check, although that might very much happen, like it's now going on in very, very specific select places. But if anything, to at least try to help a lot of people that might need it, really be able to cover their expenses in a lot of other ways. So again, going back, is that the big examples are things like pandemic EBT. So, to help maybe cover food related costs. Definitely get on that, if that's something that's of needed. I was also personally on pandemic EBT during that time period because, well, we all got to try to find ways to get food to eat. But also, again, as mentioned, things like housing, rental assistance, heating, cooling bills. They are planning to be doing something potentially related to Social Security. We did kind of make a video already talking about like some of the Social Security benefits that they might be trying to raise. I'll put a video maybe at the very, very bottom at the very, very end screen, so definitely when you watch all the way through at the end, that talks a lot about Social Security programs, if that happens to apply to you, that's potentially going to now come. Things such as like related to cost of adjustment, COLA, so cost of adjustment of living adjustment. And then interestingly also, and also of course the child tax credit, that's also another very, very big program that's supposed to be targeted specifically for families. And then interestingly also a lot of just industry specific stimulus checks. But really, I think the really, really big idea and takeaway from everything that was just mentioned in the significance is that I think that at this current time, there is a lot of questioning. I think it's very, very fair to say about whether or not we will be seeing more fourth stimulus checks. It is already happening on very focused levels, but I definitely think it's fair to say that it's a lot of questioning right now if it's going to happen on a very, very federal level. So if we're talking about like the traditional first, second, third stimulus check. However, one thing that I do see is very, very probable, and I think maybe especially if for anyone that maybe is still going through a lot of need, and that applies to millions of people inside of our country, that the big thing is that even if this need doesn't necessarily come in stimulus checks, maybe it can potentially come in ways of a lot of other kinds of stimulus programs that, depending on your specific situation and location, may actually be very much worth even more than what a stimulus check could provide. So for example, things like housing and rental assistance, as we just provided, if you happen to be in New York, being able to get your rent covered is going to be a lot worth, especially in New York City. Just maybe if you're outside of New York City, we live in a city, if you happen to be in New York, where some people will sometimes pay for about $2,000, over $2,000 sometimes, to even live in just a 0-bedroom studio apartment. I live in a relatively humble sized apartment, so that's why maybe you can see why my background is a little bit tight, and it's exactly for that reason, because we're really trying to maximize every single square footage when you live in a city like I do. But the big idea is that by being able to have things like our rent and our housing assistance covered, this can potentially be actually worth even more than what a $1,400 to $2,000 stimulus check can even provide. And if you can combine this with a lot of the other programs like pandemic EBT, heating, cooling, assistance, bills, social security, I think the ultimate goal maybe is that going forward we can maybe see relief in other ways that can maybe be even more life-changing than just getting stimulus checks. Of course, golden, stimulus checks would be so golden, but I think the idea is that some level of help. And I think that's really the most important thing. But really beyond that is that's what I really wanted to share in today's update. So if you guys found that insightful as always and haven't done so, consider smashing the like button, consider subscribing and hitting the bell. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts about honestly just anything. So that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, hoping for the best, as always, stay strong, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.